Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really wild case study in high-stakes digital competition. We're talking about a recent massively intense Grand Theft Auto racing tournament. And look, this wasn't just your casual Friday night game with friends. This was an absolute psychological pressure cooker designed to test strategy, patience, and nerve under the most extreme conditions imaginable. We're going to analyze exactly how the mechanics of this tournament stripped away pure luck and forced players to confront their own decision-making skills.
So why was the pressure so unimaginably high? Well, two words, or I guess a number, $200,000. That's the value of the prize literally sitting on the line, a brand new physical Lamborghini. From the very first second these players spawned in, they weren't just looking at a digital finish line, they were staring down life-changing money. Every single click of the keyboard, every tiny, slight turn of the virtual steering wheel carried the weight of a supercar. Just imagine trying to keep your focus when one wrong move cost you $250,000.
To understand how this all played out, we've got to look at the brutal rule set that framed the whole event. The tournament kicks off with 7 hopeful contestants, facing 6 heavily customized, insanely unforgiving GTA races. But here is the real kicker. No points. There was no cumulative leaderboard where a bad race could be magically offset by a great one. Whoever crossed the finish line last in each round was instantly eliminated. Done. Lost their chance at the Lambo. It was this pure, ruthless survival of the fittest that guaranteed the field would systematically shrink down to just a single victor.
All right, let's dive right into Section 1, Surviving the Early Races and the Hammer Strategy.
Now, surviving these early races wasn't just about pure speed. It was about surviving absolute chaos. You had 7 players fighting for real estate on extremely hazardous tracks. For the survivors, one desperate mantra really came into play. Slow and steady wins the race. See, in the early rounds, when you're racing for a Lamborghini, your natural instinct is to just mash the accelerator to the floor and never let go. But the map designers? Yeah, they totally knew that. They plopped these massive swinging digital hammers right in the middle of the track. Players who rushed frantically were violently knocked off the map over and over again, sent tumbling right back to the start. The frantic energy of the group actually became their worst enemy. The counterintuitive mechanics required to get past this roadblock were just brutal. First, you literally had to stop and wait for the hammer to pass. Second, throw your car in reverse and back up to gain enough runway. And third, time your acceleration perfectly to slip right through the gap. Sounds easy enough, right? But with elimination breathing down your neck, hitting the brakes goes against every single racing instinct you have in your body. This obstacle was so psychologically damaging that one player, Tiny, got stuck looping through these failures for 19.5 agonizing minutes before finally being eliminated.
Moving right along to Section 2, the pressure of time and isolation.
As the herd thinned out, the vibe shifted completely. Gone was the chaotic group racing, replaced by a format defined entirely by a ticking clock and total isolation. And man, did a massive skill gap open up here. Player Green goes first. Playing it cool, methodical, and patient, he locks in a blistering time of 1 minute and 4 seconds. Talk about a punishing benchmark. Then comes Jefe. He rushes, misses a jump, wastes about 10 seconds, and clocks in at 1:20. By the time our trailing players like Yellow and Orange take their turns, they know exactly the time they need to beat. And honestly, that knowledge didn't help at all. It completely shattered their composure, resulting in panicked, frustrated runs stretching well past the 2-minute mark. The big takeaway from these time trials is super clear. The ticking clock forces uncharacteristic mistakes. Think about it. You're racing a ghost. You know Green finished in 64 seconds. Every single time your car flips or you slightly overshoot a ramp, you're doing the mental math. You're literally watching that Lamborghini slip away in real time. This psychological weight of isolation caused players who had comfortably survived the chaotic group stages to totally crack under the pressure, whittling the field down to just our finalists.
Which brings us to Section 3, the climax, down to the final 2. So, out of 7 original contestants, only 2 survived the gauntlet. We've got the incredibly consistent Green and the highly competitive Devante, who goes by Jefe. It all comes down to one last custom track for the keys to the car. But of course, the creators throw one final, massive strategic dilemma at them right at the starting line. The track splits into 2 distinct paths. Side A, the squiggly road. A long, winding path that's relatively safe but requires immense patience and endurance. Side B, the 1 in 100 ramp, an absolutely massive, nearly impossible shortcut. If you hit the ramp and land the jump, you skip the entire track and win the race in 5 seconds. It was the ultimate test of a risk versus reward. Initially, both Green and Jefe play it smart. They ignore the crazy risk and start down the safe, squiggly road.
Green grabs an early lead, playing it steady just like he's done all tournament. But Jefe realizes he's got to push it. He starts taking the turns sharper, faster, slowly closing that gap. By the time they're about 65% of the way through, they are neck and neck. And this is where the pressure of a $200,000 prize finally breaks them both. Jefe literally states out loud, "My hands are shaking." Green, feeling Jefe right on his bumper, completely fumbles. In a totally shocking twist, both of our season finalists drive straight off the safe route and plummet off the map.
Boom! Suddenly, the whole dynamic flips upside down. Jefe, having fallen off the map and lost all that hard-earned momentum, realizes he's out of time. The safe road just isn't viable anymore if he wants to catch Green. Desperation takes the wheel. Jefe respawns, completely abandons the squiggly road, and aims his car dead at that 1 in 100 jump. The question that's been hanging over the whole tournament is suddenly very, very real. Will this impossible 1% risk actually pay off when everything is on the line?
Jefe hits the ramp, he launches into the digital sky, and misses the landing by an absolute fraction. I mean, he almost landed right on the track. It would have gone down as the greatest comeback of the tournament, but he fails. And because he took that massive, time-consuming risk and missed, it gave Green just enough breathing room. Green regains his composure, sticks to his methodical pacing, finishes the safe road, and claims the Lamborghini.
Now for Section 4, the aftermath and the true cost. You know, we often watch these massive digital competitions and completely forget about the real human beings sitting behind the keyboards. Just look at the sheer vulnerability from Devante, Jefe, right after watching Green get the keys to that supercar. The host, recognizing what an incredible effort Jefe put in, surprises him with a $10,000 consolation prize. And his reaction? It was raw and immediate. He says, "Bro, you don't understand, I actually might cry." It's a really powerful reminder that while the game itself is virtual, the stakes, the stress, and that emotional crash at the very end are incredibly real. 10 grand is amazing, but the phantom weight of that Lamborghini he just missed, that'll likely stick with him for a long time.
And that brings us to our final takeaway for today. Does consistency always outlast luck when the stakes are at their absolute highest? Looking back at this entire gauntlet, from the swinging hammers to the agonizing time trials, it was Green's methodical, patient, and consistent gameplay that kept him alive, while everyone else chased speed and failed. But man, in that final moment, it almost wasn't enough. It makes you wonder about your own psychology. If you were sitting at that keyboard, hands literally shaking, staring down a $200,000 prize, would you have the discipline to stick to the slow, safe road? Or would you risk it all on a 1 in 100 jump? Honestly, think about that the next time you face a high-pressure decision.